Welcome to Talk Across America. I'm Doug Miles, and we're here in beautiful Sarasota, Florida. And joining us now on our Book Talk segment, great to welcome a man who's written a book I think all of us are kind of thinking of, particularly this time of year as we talk around tax time. And it's called This is the Year I Put My Financial Life in Order. We're joined today by John Schwartz, and you know him from his work in the New York Times. He also wrote a book called Oddly Normal, great book there. And John joined us by telephone today. John, good to talk with you. How are you?
Oh, terrific. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have a chance to talk with you for a couple of minutes. Had an opportunity to read through the book. And like I said, we all kind of went through this. I did my taxes about 2 weeks ago, and we all kind of look at it more heavily now, our financial life. But I guess we really should pay more attention to it, shouldn't we?
Well, we all want to make resolutions to do better financially. You know, these are the resolutions that lead us to buy that Nordic track and then to hang our clothes on it. You really got to make the resolution and then follow through.
And this was kind of based on really your life, you and your wife, kind of like most people out in the world. You know, we go from paycheck to paycheck at times, and we don't really maybe do what we should do maybe when we should do it. But you decided at one time, hey, I better get this thing in order here, right?
Well, exactly right. That my wife and I have been together. Well, to give you an idea, we started dating when we were 18.
Wow.
She was my college sweetheart, and we started dating the week before classes started at the University of Texas in 1975. And so we've been through a lot together, and some of the financial times have been pretty tough. We've come close to disaster and been through disaster, came out on the other side. And so the story part of the book is just about our ups and downs and what we learned from it. But the meat of the book is this project that I took on to organize things, to get my financial life in order, to learn the things that I had avoided learning, both about my retirement and what I needed to know and get a will, and then to write it out in a way that it serves as mileposts for anybody who wants to follow through themselves with tips. And so, for instance, when I write about getting a will, I talk about the fact that there are programs and there are lawyers and how I decided to go with a lawyer, and then what it was like to go to the lawyer's office and work through the questions that he asked. Same with life insurance. Here's what I was asked, and this is when I found out, oh yeah, that quitting smoking 20 years ago, that was really important in terms of what I was going to pay. Those things become guideposts for the reader as well. But it's all sort of tied up in a story that I would hope would appeal to people who don't want to read a preachy personal finance book.
Well, you talk some of the stories you talk about, and I think everybody can kind of relate. You were working pretty steadily, in your job as a journalist, and even at that time, you had to go kind of save money on lunch. I think you had, French fries and gravy, right? Just to save a couple of bucks for dinner.
Yeah, it was cheap, and it killed my appetite for a while. But my wife Jean, who was the sort of chief financial officer of our family, would look at the bills, look at the mortgage, look at our debts, and then look at the paychecks that came in and say, okay, we've got $80 till Thursday, we've got $130 till Thursday. We've got to figure out what to do with that. And there were times when it was very tight, and I was scanning the lunchroom menu to figure out, okay, what could I do? So at the Washington Post, French fries were cheap, and they put gravy on them if you asked, and that was quite a little bomb of carbohydrate and fat that would keep me going through the afternoon till I could get home and eat leftovers. At the New York Times, in the cafeteria, they had a deal where you could get 3 vegetable sides, and it was less than $4. And getting a good lunch for $4 in New York City, that's pretty good.
Oh yeah, even anytime that's a good price. But
yeah,
25 years ago.
Right. So they were tight times, and I picked up some pretty good habits about not overspending. But at the same time, there were reasons for it. We were squeezed. We had, as I said, come pretty close to bankruptcy thanks to a disaster with an apartment in New York that we bought.
Right.
And climbing out of that was hard, except that it taught me a lot of good lessons about real estate. The most important one being that you can go wrong in real estate. They say you can't go wrong in real estate. The whole country figured that out in 2008. But I had a taste of it in the 1990s, and it made me a lot more careful about falling in love with somebody's bathroom.
I always thought, why, I've asked this, of other, financial people that I've interviewed, why don't they have these kind of courses taught? I think a high school course should be mandatory, and even college, if whatever major you're in, a couple of, credits, maybe 6 credits that you have to take in, finances, personal finances, and this kind, because most people don't want to deal with it. Maybe, I was lucky my dad worked in the, he was a banker, so he kind of gave us a good roadmap to follow, but still, I think a course in this in high school or college would help a lot of people, but you don't see that taught anywhere.
You don't see it taught broadly. You see sometimes the sort of informal classes, the winter break classes.
Right.
I would love to see it part of a mandatory curriculum at colleges or in high schools. Kids, especially coming up, they need to understand the value of savings. They need to understand what interest can do for them and what it can do to them if they have credit cards. They need to learn the dangers ahead, and it doesn't take a lot to teach it. I mean, speaking selfishly, I'd love to see schools assign a book like mine for them to read and say, oh, God, look at the mistakes this guy made in his 20s and 30s. I think I can do better than that. And make their way to financial health with a good start. Absent that, a few people have told me after reading the book or excerpts from it, after seeing it, that their parents sent them a note saying, you need to read this.
Yeah.
And I would, again, self-interested here, but I would love to see this be a graduation present for kids saying, the school failed you on this, the school didn't do right by you on these topics, but here's a start.
What's the biggest problem? I guess it's credit card debt for most people, right? Or any kind of debt and anything, right. But the credit card seems to be, and tuition debt. That seems to be a big one for younger people.
Tuition debt, for the younger generation, tuition debt is just a killer. And also the changed economy. That means that somebody coming up today doesn't have the kind of economic opportunities that I had coming up. In other words, I could count on going to a company with a job where I might expect to stay for a very long time, invest in a pension, and that pension would be funded, and I would have that money in retirement. Those jobs are harder to get now.
Yeah.
We live in a more gig economy, and people they don't have the benefits that they used to have. It's a harder scramble, and then on top of that, you're weighing these young people down with college debt. It's obscene.
It's almost the case now where college may not be the option for the majority of people anymore, right? Unless you really know exactly what you want to do, you may not think that may not be a good deal.
Well, I'm a fan of college.
Oh, I am too.
I think
the cost of it.
I think the cost of it is high. It's important for people to figure out how much college, or what kind of college they need. We don't necessarily, and I have seen enough studies that suggest that the cost of college is well paid off in the increased income you get by being a college graduate, the economic opportunities you have as a college graduate. But that doesn't mean you need to go to the most expensive college. We sent our 3 kids to public universities.
Right.
Now, we sent them as out-of-state students, and we paid a lot. But it was still far less than we would have paid at some of the elite Northeastern institutions that charge an incredible amount. Universities require a lot of money. Some of them offer deals, some of them offer scholarships, but it's really important to take a cold look at how much college you can afford, and especially if you're going to tell your kid that the kid is going to pay part of it too. That if your kid is paying that burden, that young person really needs to know what the cost is going to be over time, and you might come to some pretty smart decisions. I was thrilled when all 3 of my kids wanted to go to public universities. First of all, because my wife and I went to public universities. We both went to the University of Texas at Austin. We felt we got a terrific education. and we were not left with this backbreaking amount of debt. Of course, back then, the University of Texas cost $200 a semester. It pains me to say it.
You can't even get, that's probably $200 a credit now.
Yeah. Oh, it's unbelievable.
Or more. I don't know what it is now, but yeah, right.
Yeah. No, even then it was common for my books to cost more than my tuition.
Oh, sure.
And I don't think that you have to choose a practical degree either. I think that the classic liberal arts degree, if it's done well, teaches you how to learn any topic. And I couldn't have become the journalist I've become if I hadn't gotten very good at research, at tackling an issue I know nothing about, and reading up and talking to people until I knew enough to write a few intelligent sentences about what I'd learned. There's real, people like to say now that a liberal arts degree is useless. I think it's as useful and flexible as any program you can get into. So we look at these choices, we make these choices. The important thing is to find a stable way forward so that when we get to the end, and when we get to times like retirement, we're not in terrible trouble. That's the point. The most important thing I try to tell young people in their 20s and 30s is, if you haven't started a savings plan, if you haven't started that IRA or 401k, it's really time to go now.
Yeah. Well, great advice in the book. It's called This is the Year I Put My Financial Life in Order, and we've been talking with John Schwartz today. John, give out a website if you have one. People can get more information about the book.
Well, there's a page for the book on Facebook. If you type in "This is the Year Schwartz," it should pop up with more information about the book and announcements. And you can always follow my Twitter feed, which is not spelled like my name. It's J Schwartz, JSWATZ, and that's where I talk about the book some and about the stories I'm working on and journalism and a lot of really dumb jokes.
Well, it's a pleasure talking to you. I wish we had more time. Hopefully we can do it down the road. But, John, great to chat with you for a couple of minutes. Good luck with the book, and we'll do it again down the road. Thanks for being with us.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today on Talk Across America. Please visit our website at dougmilesmedia.com for more great interviews and content. And if you're interested in any of the books we talk about on the program, please click the Amazon link on our website. It helps support the podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again real soon here from beautiful Sarasota, Florida.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.